great. This week on the Documentary Review Podcast, we would run 100 miles and we would run 100 more as we discuss the 2014 documentary, The Barkley Marathons. Welcome to the podcast. I'm PT.
I'm Jonathan. Glad you can join us.
Mm-hmm. Welcome, everyone. How's it going, Jonathan?
Good. It's going good. Life's busy lately, but
pregnant pause there.
I was, I've been running around crazy enough to the point where, like, today I was like, you know what? I just feel like, crawling into a fetal position and just laying in a corner for a while to regroup. But I didn't do that. Carried on. Worked up until the very minute this podcast started, and probably will work after it. So,
all right, cool.
Yeah. How about you? How's life going for you, PT?
It's going pretty okay. Got nothing to report at this time, I guess. But
all right.
Hey, you had a light bulb go out right before we started. I'm just curious, have you gotten into the smart home craze at all? I know you're usually kind of up on technology and stuff like that.
No, I haven't smart homed out my home yet. I debated for a minute getting like some techie LED lights that can change colors and the mood in the room and all that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then it was like a ton of money. I was like, it's not that cool. I don't know. Right. I assume it's one of those things that, like, for the first week, I'd be like, this is really cool. When people came over, I'd be like, check this out. This is pretty cool. And they'd be like, yeah. And then I would never use it again.
Right.
So, but anyway, yeah, no. So just regular light bulb went out. Here you go. Here's look at this. Boom. Here's an old light bulb. It's full of like mercury and stuff, I think. I don't think you're supposed to destroy light bulbs anymore. So let's find a way to properly dispose of it.
Do it. All right. Speaking of properly disposing of stuff, tell us about this week's documentary, Jonathan.
All right. This week's documentary follows the history of, or gives us a lowdown on the history of something called the Barkley Marathons, which is arguably one of the hardest racing events on planet Earth. It has a very unique and interesting founder and a very unique and interesting methodology. For entryway in the race itself is even crazy in a lot of ways. And then it takes us, kind of gives us that background on the history of the Barkley Marathons, and then takes us through one event, which I think was the 2012 marathon. And it gives us a little introduction to the characters and follows their trials and tribulations as they tried to complete one of the hardest marathons in the world, or ultra marathons in the world.
Nice. Nicely done. All right. Did you give it the thumbs up or the thumbs down on this one?
Thumbs up for me. I enjoyed the Barkley Marathons. You?
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I like the there's a lot of stuff I'll say that I liked about it as we go, but I think it brought up a lot of it had a lot of little. It was definitely like a low budget documentary, but I thought they did a good job with it, and it brought up a lot of kind of interesting life kind of ideas that I'm sure we'll touch on, and a lot of colorful characters and things like that. So yeah, I was definitely a fan of it for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. This is the first time in a while I've taken some serious notes on this documentary. So
good, I'm glad, because I took no notes and was just like had my head spinning with work. So I'm trying to shift gears really quick and focus into this documentary.
That's right.
Review. So any help I can get from you is much appreciated.
Indeed. So the first 25 years of the marathon, only 10 people finished it. And we're going to take a look at this documentary focuses on the 2012 version of the race. I looked this up right before we started, and they just did this year's version like a week ago.
2016. Oh, nice.
Yeah. And
were you in it?
I was
right by your house, right?
I was the human sacrifice guy.
You weren't the human sacrifice this year. I would do that. I would be the human sacrifice. Sure. I would really try and get one lap in.
Yeah,
for sure. Oh yeah.
No, but this year only one person completed it, and the year before, 2015, nobody completed it.
Right.
So we're going downhill from this banner year of this documentary. But
although it is amazing, because the race had been going on for quite some time before anyone completed it.
Right.
And I can't remember how many years they said that it had been going on, but I find that so interesting about like the kind of that generational knowledge, if you will, or whatever, that once something is completed, it can be impossible for so long. Once one person does it and everyone just like is aware that it is a possibility to do that accomplishment, then all of a sudden it took forever to get the first one, and then there's 10, in the first 25 years, then all of a sudden we had, several years with completions. The 2012 had talk about picking a good year to do the documentary.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, 2 people completed it.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm sure we'll talk about like all the different crazy stuff about it, but just the basic layout of it is it's like a truly like off trail, like running through the middle of the woods kind of race, and it's each loop is 20 miles supposedly, but apparently they keep adding like different stuff to it and then not like updating the mileage, so it's probably more than 20 miles per loop, but and then you're supposed to do 5 loops to do the complete deal if you can do it.
Yeah, and their estimate was about 26 miles per loop for the actual distance at this time.
Right.
So they're basically running 5 marathons consecutively.
All right.
and then like running is really it is a true. So there are some trails in the area that they run, but they did say that what was it? About a third of it is on trail and the rest is off, and it is crazy off trail. Like,
yeah.
After the first, after the first lap, they were just like, you saw the legs of the competitors, and they were just torn to shreds, like bleeding, and just like, not like their feet, not like the part you normally would think would be, bleeding and injured from a marathon, but the actual like calves and thighs of these people were torn up by the bushes and shrubbery and all that stuff.
Right. All right, so we'll get into some of the craziness about the race, but kind of the 2 organizers of it are Lazarus Lake and Raw Dog are the 2 guys, but they definitely focus on Lazarus Lake. He's kind of the more colorful character, the guy who's the main kind of focus of it, and I liked him a lot, and I living in this area, he's definitely like an atypical, like kind of a personality type that I've definitely seen around a little bit, like a weird combination of like hippie and hillbilly that like you would not like find in most places, and kind of like good humored, but in like kind of a like you saw the way he was kind of basically taunting some of the people who didn't finish and stuff like that. Kind of a jerk, but also like kind of good-hearted about it too. Like a really unique personality type that I've run across a few guys like that in this area. But
he was one of my favorite people in a documentary. Like where I really liked, because one, he like, so we see a lot of eccentric people in documentaries, and certainly on paper he is a crazy person, where like the race only costs $1.60 for the application fee, which is not refundable, and then he asked for stuff like shirts, like a flannel shirt and stuff for the actual entry fee. All that stuff's crazy, and then so basically he's doing this really elaborate. It's got to be a ton of work for him to get it all done, and obviously it takes a big chunk of time. He's doing it for free, so it's all like crazy things, like everything about it is pretty crazy. But when you see him in the documentaries, he's obviously a very intelligent guy, and he doesn't come across as really crazy or flaky at all. I mean, he's it's certainly an odd thing, but like I think a lot of things about this whole documentary really just made me happy about the world, and like happy about like people, which is really nice coming off the last one. So like which is our last documentary we reviewed was Hunting Grounds, which was all about basically the worst elements in people all the way around, and this is kind of about the best. It was like these people are doing it for no gain. They're keeping it at $1.60, so anyone on earth can join or do the marathon. No one at least will be prohibited from doing the race because of an economic barrier. Everybody could probably, if you needed to, swing by Starbucks and ask for $2, and someone will give it to you.
All right.
And then too, like just seeing all the people, like how amazing it was to me that these people really tried to push themselves past their breaking point to a whole new limit and level.
Yeah,
I thought it was very, very cool. Um,
indeed. Totally agree. I liked him a lot, and I kind of want to go look him up or something now. See if I can maybe volunteer at the next race or something.
oh yeah, that'd be cool. That'd
Uh,
probably be easier than being in the race.
yeah, for sure. I also read he's an assistant like high school basketball coach. So go to some of those games. Um, one of the things that I thought was like one of the crazier aspects that they like. I mean, they definitely talked about it, but I was like, this adds definitely a huge new element to it that I think they could have focused on even more than they did. Was just the idea that that there's only like one master map they have for the course, and when people get there, they're like passing around this master map and like trying to figure out like on their own maps like where to go and stuff like that. Like breaking out all their navigation gear and stuff like that. Like, man, you really got to know like how to read a map, not just like a normal like how to read a street map way, but like in a army survival kind of way, like to be able to get around on this trail, you know?
Yeah, and something that they they say, but I think most people would never appreciate is that you have to do these laps at night. I mean, some during the day and some at night, and sometimes you start at night. And like I can tell you, like I go hunting with my cousin. We go out, in backwoods and all that. And there are times, and we know like now the area we go fairly well. But if we stay out and push it, and we have to get back after dark, it is a whole nother ball game. Like even an area that you like know well, it is so hard to navigate like deep woods in the dark.
All right.
I mean, even if you got a flashlight or whatever, you're just like nothing looks the same. Everything's just like feels like it's been moved around on you. And like there have been times when we're like we always get our way back because we know the area, and eventually you're like, oh crap, we found something we know, and we're not where we thought we were, but now we know where we're at and we can get back. But I can't imagine just like getting a map to a place and then having somebody toss you out in the middle of the night and be like, all right, follow this 26-mile loop. I mean, that
Right.
just sounds impossible.
Yeah, and like and combine that with like the quote unquote checkpoints are like a book that's hidden somewhere like under a rock or something, and you have to like find the book and tear out a specific page to prove that you were there. Holy cow, can you imagine doing that doing that at night? That would be crazy.
Right now, can you imagine doing it at night after not sleeping for 50 consecutive hours?
Yeah. That's what I like about this whole thing, and I mean I like it about ultra marathons in general, but this like particularly is it's such a mental challenge, even more so than a physical challenge. I mean, obviously you have to be in really good shape to do it and everything like that, but I mean, yeah, it seems like anyone could kind of do it if they tried hard enough and trained hard enough and were mentally tough enough. It's more of like a mental and willpower kind of challenge almost than being a freakish athlete or something like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like, obviously with the caveat of you got to train really hard, but it's not running like a 4-minute mile. I mean,
Right.
there's certain people that you're just not going to be able to do it. I think anyone could train to be in the physical condition to complete this.
Right.
We're not saying that anyone could complete it, but obviously almost no one can complete it.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
So all right. So let me just go through my notes a little bit. So I wrote down that Lazarus Lake has an awesome giant map of Tennessee where he's marked all the places he ran. I enjoyed his super ridiculously giant map. It's like, why doesn't he just have a normal size map? I don't know. No reason. He just likes having that giant rolled up map. So there's 40 runners. Yeah, we kind of talked about that. The application process is kind of secret. I mean, I get the sense that
yeah,
you kind of just have to know somebody or something, right? Because you can't like they say he says if you belong here, you'll figure out how to enter.
yeah, I guess that must be how you do it. Because one of the guys totally joked about like, oh yeah, it's really easy. You just like go on their website and, and he's like, no,
Right,
there's no way you would ever like Google and find out the information about it. But
right. And I'm really curious too because one of them said it's the only race he's ever been in that had a written exam as part of the application process. So that could be like testing your navigation skills, or it could be completely crazy questions that have nothing to do with anything. Who knows?
Sure, yeah. Who knows if that exam even like matters?
Not
Like
right.
I would love to know what the exam is. Like they could just take that and throw it away after you do it, and it's just a matter of you had to like muscle through getting to the last answer of the exam. You know,
Right.
but yeah, yeah. I'd love to know everything you have to do because the one guy said he'd. I think he said he'd done nothing but try to get into this marathon for like 6 months or something like that. Like it took him 6 months of
Right.
actively trying to become part, to be part of the marathon.
Right. Yeah, and they said, I think they said in some years they've had 700 people apply, and it's 40 people are accepted. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the criteria is or anything, but that's part
Yeah,
of the fun, I guess.
I suppose so. And it would appear that like some people had run the marathon a lot and were like from the area and knew that
All right.
guy. So like I think, there's probably a handful of spots dedicated for the people that, were intimately involved with the creation and longevity of the race. But so yeah,
Right.
it's a pretty hard race to get into.
Yeah. They mentioned that when you get accepted, you get a letter of condolences. Letting you have been accepted.
Right.
Uh,
I think that was that's a really accurate thing to give out. Like after seeing what the people went through on that race, it's like, yeah, you should get a letter of condolence when you get accepted.
yes, indeed. So the whole race, I guess we should say, was inspired by James Earl Ray, who assassinated Martin Luther King Jr. He escaped from the penitentiary that's down there, Bushy State Penitentiary, and only made it something like, I don't know what it was, 8 miles, I think, in 60 hours or something like that. And then Laz was like, "I'll bet I could do 100 miles in that time." That guy's a wuss. And then he, instead of just say that, he was like, "I should create a race to make that happen."
Yeah, I wonder how many people were in it in the first year.
Mhm.
Because like he said, because everyone, and the funny thing is everybody thought it was just they call it the fun run, which is if
Right.
you do 3 laps, three loops, which is, depending on how you judge the 3 loops between 80 and whatever on 100 or 98 miles, or yeah, 108 miles. But anyway, or sorry, 60 or
Right.
78 miles. But yeah, so that's the fun run. That's if you get in there and have a good time. You complete 3 laps. But it took years and years before anyone completed that, and that's when they were like, "Well, haha, there's still 2 more laps to go."
Yep. That would be awesome if you would have just kept doing that. Like, just
Right.
kidding. It's 10 laps. Um, I also like there's so many great little things about the race that make me think this guy's a genius. Like this the whole thing that like it could start at any time, and like it's 12-hour period. And you just got to be ready to go, and then like he blows a conch shell, and then it's like 1 hour. He blows it before the start time. He blows a conch shell. That's got to be a stressful 12 hours when you're just waiting
I
for it to
can't
start.
I can't imagine, like, if you're starting a regular race, it gets stressful like right before the race starts. I can't imagine just being like, is it going to start? Is it going to start? Is it going to be the daytime? Is it going to be nighttime? I don't know. Just drive you insane.
Right.
That's
I love it.
uh,
Um, so what do you think about the whole, like, one of the kind of interesting philosophies kind of things to me? And it was, he said, one of the things, really cool things about the race, he thinks is that it really attracts people who are used to like just succeeding at everything in their life. And it seemed to be that at least the people they interviewed were all pretty successful people. They had a lot of people in pretty high level professional type careers and stuff like that. And it attracted those kind of people because this was something they could possibly fail at. We think of that whole idea.
yeah, I think there's got to be a lot of truth to it, or maybe that's just how they pick their people too. Because I mean, like again, he was like, yeah, a lot of people there have like PhDs and stuff like that. There's people that just like are very driven and trying to succeed and do succeed. But I wonder, especially going in the first time, I bet you all of them assume that they will complete even if because there's a certain mentality where if you're successful all the time, that even
Right.
if the odds are very against you, you're like, well, the odds are always very against me, and I succeed.
Right.
So eventually you get that mentality, and I don't know. I'm sure it's a great experience, like in the end of it for everybody. Everybody that does the race.
Sure.
But,
Uh, yeah. One knock I do have against this documentary is that, man, I tell you, like, at least like the main like four guys or so that they're following look basically exactly the same. They're, I mean, maybe it's partly just due to maybe that's like the body type that ultra runners have or whatever. But even within that, like I had a hard time. I was like, they're all just kind of skinny dudes with with brown hair, and they all look so similar. And that like actually like killed some of the drama for me because I didn't really care like how it ended up. I was like, wait, I don't really care who wins because I don't know who. I don't get. Wait, which one of these is the guy whose family is there? I don't know.
that's funny.
I don't know who's who. So I don't know what they could have done to differentiate them more. I think they did a good enough job, but I was just like, man, all these people are exactly the same.
Should have had him wear funny hats, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. Always was able to tell them apart. I guess I never, because I didn't notice that, or at least like now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, they were pretty freaking identical. But
Right,
suppose,
especially the two. I guess this is a spoiler or whatever, but like the two who were kind of racing at the end. Man, those guys looked a lot
really,
like
I mean, like,
the third place guy like looked a little different. I felt like, but the main two that were like kind of racing at the end, I was like, wait, I couldn't differentiate them for some reason.
huh? It's interesting. Yeah, no, I could always, because like the one had longer hair and the other had really short hair. And
Mm.
I don't know,
Yeah, I don't know.
but yeah. Yeah, the one guy just won the Colorado ultra marathon that goes along the top of the Rockies or whatever.
Right, right.
So
Good job.
yeah, good job to that guy. Pretty good runner.
Yeah, just I remember reading. This is one thing I think would be really cool about ultra marathons. I remember reading Dean Karnassis's book about, and he was talking about when he first started doing ultra marathons. Like he didn't really tell anyone, like other than his family or whatever, that he was doing it, and it was like he felt it like gave him so much like just power in his everyday life because he just felt like I have this crazy secret identity that no one knows about, kind of a thing. And like any challenge that would come up in this everyday life, he'd be like, oh yeah, they don't know that I just ran 100 miles or whatever last weekend. This is kind of cool.
That's kind of
concept.
cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's like I kind of like that they, although it's kind of egotistical too, because I'm sure like maybe rightfully so. After you run a 100-mile race, you're just like looking at everybody else, like, look at all these pussies. They're such big pussies compared to me.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about that too when I was watching it. I was like, imagine if you were one of these guys and you were like talking about running at work, and then somebody was like, "Oh yeah, I just did a 5K." It'd be hard not to like laugh in their face. You suck, buddy.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I'm sure you wouldn't respect their 5K that much, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. Um. So what do you think about the another one of the like kind of statements that I got that I guess it was Laz made, or maybe it was one of the other guys. I think it was one of the other guys said that the one thing that he likes about the Barkley is that he thinks that people need more pain in their lives, like in our comfortable daily lives. Like pain is a good thing. What do you think about that?
I totally agree with that. I totally think that's why we're so whiny a lot of times in the US, is because we're all soft, when you a friend that's just moved here from the Ukraine, from Kiev, and so which was basically like the whole winter on fire thing.
Right.
So he was like, he worked like 6 blocks from excuse me.
What?
Sorry about that, but he worked just a couple blocks from where like people were like being killed. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
active civil unrest that was resulting in death. Super cool guy, like way cooler and way more like, um, just like had certainly a deeper, more caring respect for everything around it, and like was cherishing like the peace and the prosperity of America, but in a way that was, just made him seem like a really awesome dude. And obviously, I think a lot of that has to do with like, yeah, when you're in an environment like that where you're like, wow, legitimately today I could die, and you could think that every single day going to work. Yeah, it really would make you appreciate everything else, and not sweat the small stuff. I think we don't get that as much here.
Or you become the Punisher. That's what I learned. One of the two.
One of those. But yeah, no, I think we had a little more pain, a little more, real, like, reminders that we're just kind of, animals, little tissue wrapped around bone, that we wouldn't get so caught up in petty stuff and might be a little nicer to each other.
I had this lady who worked today that I overheard that said something that really made me laugh out loud. She said, "You know what? I'm the kind of person who's always looking for blessings and always sees the positive in everything. But man, nothing ever goes right in my life, and everything is so hard." Like, wait a minute, I don't think that first part is true from what you just said.
Right. That is awesome.
Yes. The other thing, like, so right after that guy said about people needing more pain in their lives, Lazarus had a comment that I liked about a lot, where he talked about he thinks like the biggest benefit of the Barkley is that it really kind of like makes the participants, like, by the time they're done with it, they have like totally don't care at all like what anyone else thinks of their accomplishment. Like, it's all, once you've been through that, you like totally have your own bar set for what your accomplishments are, and you're not out to please anyone else by the end of it. You're just the only thing that could possibly keep you going is wanting to meet your own goals and things like that. So I thought that was cool, and something that's worth taking away from it, and something that's good.
Absolutely. I think something else he said in there too was, I don't have it written down, but it was essentially like, you're never going to grow unless you push yourself to a point that you've never been before. I think that's part of that too, where like that's where you get that, where if you hit the end of that race, or you hit the end of it for yourself, not necessarily finish the whole thing. Yeah, you just found out a little bit more about yourself. You just took yourself to a place you've never been before, most likely. And that's, that's where you don't care what anyone else thinks. At that point, you've grown, and you've taken it to a level you never thought you could. So,
right. Yeah.
But yeah, we should all do something like that. Push ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And one kind of last thing that I thought was cool about the documentary was just the idea that, like, I mean, I'd never heard of this, and I live pretty close to this, and I'm sure most people have never heard of this who haven't watched this documentary. So it just made me think, like, man, there's a lot of like cool stuff just going on in the world that I'm sure most of us don't know about. There's a lot of just crazy little cool things happening all the time. But who knows how many cool things there are like this out there?
I bet you tons. I just found out one in my own little backyard, if you will. Like, I had a friend that had up in Breckenridge, a little ski town in Colorado. They what's it called? Bull in the Woods or something like that is the name of the thing. But all these people like realize that how like snowboarders and all that go down like rails and stuff in terrain parks and all that. That it kind of started off with people just like riding on logs in the woods. So they basically had like lumberjacks come down and cut down some good old fashioned pine trees, and then they had like this just super little sprung out of nowhere. Just a couple people got the idea in their head, and they were just like, I was watching a video somebody I knew took of it, and it was just like these guys doing these extreme moves off of just like
Nice
pine trees that they'd cut down on the woods, and now like there was maybe like 100 spectators or something this last year. They came to watch it, which was amazing. Like, it was crazy, but yeah, that just happens. It's just going on out there. Nobody knows about it except apparently about 100 people.
Right. Yeah, it's cool. It's like a different way to look at the world when you think of, man, there's all this cool stuff going on. And like I just watched like our friend Andy, his son is big into skateboarding, and he started a YouTube channel, and he was doing a vlog of like their family vacation Andy shared it with me because he thought I'd think it was cool, and it was cool because like it was you kind of see through his eyes the way he was looking at. They were in St. Louis, and the way he was looking at the city. Like you'd like just see little spots downtown and be like, "Oh man, that'd be great to skate." And then he'd like go like just be jumping off the crazy little sculptures or whatever down there. So it was cool. Just neat way to see the world like from a perspective of there's always cool stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like especially in a good old fashioned election year, you need to remember stuff like that. Like there are a lot of cool people and cool things that, like one of the Barkley Marathon was nobody benefits from it. You know what I mean? There's no economical motivator. There's no political motivator. People are just doing it because they want to challenge themselves, and no one's trying to capitalize on it. And that exists in the world today, all around us. And we never see it. We always focus on, everybody's screwing everybody else to make money and all that stuff. But it's not. I mean, there are awesome people and things and events out there that people do just to do them, just because they think it's a good thing for the world, and people do it just because they think it's going to better themselves. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Totally. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to bring up that I thought was worth mentioning was the third guy who ended up finishing in this race was talking about his dad and how his dad like always was planning to had always saved a bunch of money. He was planning to do a bunch of traveling when he retired, and then he ended up dying like a year before he retired. And so that's kind of what got this guy, along with some other stuff, to kind of start seeing life in a new way. So it was obviously a super interesting story, but it definitely got me thinking about, man, there's such a balance there. Like you could definitely go too far with that, but it's definitely something I think you want to keep in mind. So it's interesting. It's a balance to strike in life, I guess.
Yeah, I thought of it too, where I was like, like a huge part of like something that I assume he didn't have was a wife and children. You know what I mean? Where that, because you can't. I mean, it all changes at that point. And I mean, not necessarily. I'm sure like we don't balance it all that well. I probably don't either. Not many people do. Where I probably don't do enough like spontaneous things with my family and take them out. But it's just a heck of a lot harder to be like, like that guy's gonna go take a week and run a crazy endurance race in the woods in Tennessee. If I had just like told my wife and kids like, "Hey guys, see you in a week. I'm gonna go run a crazy endurance race in Tennessee," they'd be like, I mean, I guess I could make it happen, if I wanted to drag them along, or maybe I could find like a family crazy thing to do more often. But
sure.
Certainly, yeah, I guess we can all die tomorrow, so just do a little more of that than I do.
Yeah, and like on the other hand, that one guy who was one of the final two did have his wife and his kid there, like helping him and stuff like that. So it was cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
What can be done?
How many stars are you going to give the Barkley Marathon?
I'm giving it 4 stars. It's pretty darn good. I recommend it to anybody.
Nice. I'm going to piggyback off you and give it 4 stars also. So
there we go.
I hadn't thought about it, and 4 stars seems fairly accurate, so I'll go with that.
Cool.
All right, next week. So Jonathan, in the past couple weeks, it's been a couple weeks since we've done this, but I saw the movie Batman versus Superman, or Superman versus Batman, whatever it is, and it's a little disillusioned by it. I felt like some of my childhood heroes were ridiculously and unnecessarily made dark, and so dark. And I want to bring some light back. So I want to offer up to you 3 documentaries that are a little more hopeful look at some hero kind of people here. So, okay. So the first one is Bat Kid Begins, which I don't know if you saw like the thing on it was some viral videos and stuff like a year or 2 ago where there's a kid who I don't know what he has, but it was a Make-A-Wish Foundation kind of thing. But he wanted to be Batman, and a bunch of people went to a heck of a lot of effort and gave him an awesome experience as Batman. And it was pretty crazy, and this is a documentary about that. So that's the first one. The second one is My Beautiful Broken Brain, which is about a young woman who has a stroke, and it's basically about how she's trying to come back from that stroke and trying to figure out what her life is going to be now. It sounds very depressing now that I've said it out loud, but from the description, it seemed like it was going to be very inspiring.
Yeah.
All right, and the final one is Call Me Lucky, which is about a comedian who, in the early days of the internet, like goes on kind of a crazy quest to uncover some things and create some new laws, and like kind of has a, seek wants to seek justice. I don't want to give away too much about it, but he's basically a comedian who tries to do this really big good thing for the world.
Huh.
So there you go. That's you got Bad Kid Begins, My Beautiful Broken Brain, or Call Me Lucky.
They all sound good. I've not seen any of them.
Me either, so they might all suck. I don't know.
Ooh, they could. Let's see. I want to go with My Beautiful Broken Brain.
All right. My Beautiful Broken Brain it is.
We'll see if it's as depressing as it sounds or a pinnacle of human triumph.
Yeah.
My guess that'll be one of those things where we'll be like, you shouldn't whine so much. At least
Right.
we didn't have a crazy stroke that we have to come back from.
One of my speaking of one of my friends at work who he doesn't live here in the same town as me. He lives in Louisiana, but he just had a stroke, and he's been doing like vlogs basically of like every day in the hospital. He's doing a vlog, and it's crazy because like I heard he had a stroke or whatever, but since he's been doing this vlog, it's like, wow, yeah, he really had a stroke. And he's like going through the details of what he's trying to come through and stuff. It's crazy. It's really cool though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
So, anyway, we'll talk more about that when we discuss the documentary. That will be My Beautiful Broken Brain. It is on Netflix. In the meantime, hey man, thanks for watching and listening, whatever you're doing. We appreciate you. And I use
right.
the non-gender sense.
And if anyone out there has 100 hours to kill, I'm sorry, 60 hours to kill, I would recommend running 100 miles, preferably in the dark around mountains. But
nice.
It's your call.
Indeed. I forgot to ask you, do you have any interest in doing like an ultra marathon or anything after seeing this? Or?
You know, after seeing this, I really would love to go do one lap. I don't think I would have a desire to do the like full on take a shot, or maybe like, but I would love to go there and try and do, you know, spend 16 hours or whatever it would take me to do the one loop and see if I could do it. I think that would be awesome. I don't think I would have too much of a desire to shoot for the 100 miles. So
sounds good. All right. Well, thank you for listening and watching. This is PT. Keep it real.
This is Jonathan. We'll see you next week.